My marriage might be over, I moved, and I quit my job. I think we have some catching up to do. Well, if this is the first time you're seeing me, hi, I'm Cora. You are probably meeting me during the worst phase of my life, but let me tell you, it will get better, okay? So make sure you hit the notification bell to see when I upload, but let's do some makeup and talk about what's been going on with me. Because I have missed these long videos, okay? Sometimes short videos are perfect, but I feel like I can't fill in the details like I can on YouTube. You know what I'm saying? Starting by prepping my eyes with the MAC Painterly paint pot. So last time I updated you guys on my living situation, I was living in the Bay Area. I moved there really suddenly. I literally got the job and moved there within like 2 weeks. So as abruptly as it feels like my Bay Area chapter started, it also feels like it ended very abruptly as well. L'Oreal True Match, my tried and true foundation. So if you watched my separation announcement video on TikTok, a lot of these details will be repetitive, but I can fill in some additional color. I really moved there for professional advancement. My job at Google was a contract, but I ended up really quickly getting a job at LinkedIn. And I feel like I really found my groove at LinkedIn. I absolutely loved my team. I loved my coworkers. While I definitely didn't see myself staying in the Bay Area, I am a SoCal girl through and through. I feel like my life was going in a really positive direction. I also got a boyfriend around this time. By the way, if you see my dogs running around, I have 2 dogs now. You guys have met Ernie, but this is Dolly. She's my doggy soulmate. And then, of course, a little thing called the pandemic hit. Like many of us, I feel like my life kind of fell apart overnight. My entire team was laid off at LinkedIn, so I was on unemployment. I lived in Mountain View, which became a very isolated part of the Bay Area at that time because so many corporations are based there, and literally everyone left, so I was alone. I had a boyfriend, but he lived an hour away, so I would always have to be going to him. I developed some really bad health complications during that time, which I've never really talked about on social media. I got something called tinnitus, which I'm happy to talk about, but basically it's like a constant ringing in your ears. I also started getting really bad migraines because the ringing in my ears was so bad. So I became depressed really quickly. I had no friends or family around. Every single friend I made moved to Southern California. And I think I had a really hard time identifying that it was depression until recently, but honestly, I never really bounced back. I've always been really ambitious, really career focused, saw myself working in tech, but honestly, the tech industry never really bounced back after that. After Tesla, I was hired fully remote, and then they had a return to office mandate, so I ended up leaving for a CPG company. And I'm gonna be honest, I hated the CPG company. I feel like I fell further and further into a depression because even though life was getting back to normal post-COVID, it felt like the elephant in the room, like no one was addressing how much life had changed. And I felt like I was the only one really struggling. I felt really isolated and really alone in the Bay Area because all of my friends had moved. It was just in that perfect transitionary time in life when everyone is getting married and having kids, and I wasn't quite ready to do that. So I felt like people my age weren't really receptive to making friends where I lived. This is the Tower 28 Finest Hour Red Cream Blush. I am obsessed with this. So I felt like I was just losing myself more and more. I feel like I really leaned into content, which gave me a lot of purpose because I felt like I was alone literally all the time. So as sad as it sounds, my dogs and content really saved me. I also got my husband involved in my content more and more. I was just super unhappy and something needed to change. So in October, the CPG job I was hired at hired me remote, and again, they had a return to office mandate. I feel like that was a really good opportunity to evaluate my life and what I wanted. If you've been following this page as long as I've been posting, you know I've always sort of been one foot in and one foot out with content. You know, finding short form content really changed the game for me. So in October, I finally decided to take the leap and I quit my full-time job to do content full-time. This is the Anastasia Micro Brow Pencil. By the way, I'll have all of the products I use in this video linked below. Anyway, quitting my job was probably the scariest decision I have ever made in my life, but it's also the proudest I've ever been of myself in my life. I think the reason I've always been one foot in and one foot out with content is because I never really believed in myself. And now felt like the first time in my life where I could finally take the leap. A big reason why I quit was also because I was trying to get pregnant. I started really struggling with the concept of not being there for my kids, and I really wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. I knew with content creation, I could make my own schedule. schedule and have autonomy over my life in a way I couldn't with a 9 to 5 job. So it also just made sense for motherhood, and I started to get really excited about life again. A lot of people on TikTok have been asking me what exactly happened with my husband, which I understand. It was pretty sudden that I just up and left the Bay Area, announced that we're getting separated. I will never publicly talk about the details of what happened, but I will say that there was a sudden event that happened that made me up and leave. My husband and I are on good terms right now. Don't want anyone to think there was cheating or anything like that, but something happened and I will leave it at that. So I called my mom and I basically just had a breakdown, and I just admitted to her that I was depressed, honestly, and that I had been struggling with pretty bad depression for some time. I know I sound pretty unemotional in this video when I'm talking about this, but I have been on SSRIs to be able to get through this season of life. So these have already been a lifesaver for me, just to be able to sleep and talk through what I'm experiencing. My mom is not a very sympathetic person. Through all the stages in my life, honestly, when I've needed help or needed to come home, she's kind of told me to figure it out myself. So I did not even think it was an option. I was kind of just calling her to vent, and she said, "You need to come home immediately." After a couple of days, I packed up all of the stuff I could and I went home to Southern California, which is where I am now and where I will be for the foreseeable future. I've heard people talk about divorce, of course, on social media, but I've never really heard people talk about separation. I have not filed for divorce, but my husband and I are separated pending figuring out what we want to do next. And I feel like it's a really weird spot to be in because you're not sure if you want to make it work or if you want to just go on ahead and file. So my husband and I are taking some time apart while we navigate this. And I'm not gonna lie to you guys, it has been really hard. Like, some days are like today where I'm able to articulate it really well. And even with the SSRIs, there are some days when I can't get out of bed and I just get really overwhelmed by everything that's happening. I need to be a mom immediately so bad. Thinking about baby names, I was on prenatals, I was doing all those gynecologist appointments. It's just been hard. Been trying to just take things one day at a time to get through the trauma of my life falling apart, really. I wasn't really sure how to navigate posting it online. I knew I had to because my husband was in a lot of my videos and then all of a sudden he wasn't in them anymore. But the response has really shocked me, mainly with how many people are experiencing this or have experienced similar, whether that is their marriage not working out or an unexpected divorce. This has been a really lonely experience, just not being able to talk to people what I'm going through. So even sharing what I am comfortable with has really made me feel less alone. So that is my life update. I have no idea what the future is gonna hold, but I know that there is so much opportunity and more long form content to come in 2025, and I'll see you in the next one.